Um, Hi, my name is Rachel Lutz. I'm the owner of this shop, the Peacock Room. We have 4 locations in Detroit. There will be time for questions afterwards, but I wanted to just share with you my personal story. I am a second generation tenant actually in the Fisher building here. I grew up in this building, so it really means a lot to me that I have the privilege of being able to do business here and serve my community. I started my business, the Peacock Room, in 2011. It was on the heels of the Great Recession. I've survived 3 years of street construction on Woodward. I'm trying to survive 5 years of fragility around the COVID-19 pandemic. A lot of us are still trying to recover and to find stable footing after that. And here we are in what feels like a man-made crisis. So I'm here to just talk about how this will impact me as a small business owner and my friends and community members, and ultimately the consumers who aren't seeing what's behind the curtain right now in terms of a lot of businesses. So I started this business maxing out a $1,500 credit card. We now do over $1.5 million in revenue a year. I'm proud to employ at least 10 people. During the holidays, that can be flexible to 15 positions. At this point, I'm not sure that I can hire seasonal help because I'm not totally confident that because of this tariff issue, I'm going to have the stability in the business environment that I need to feel confident going into the holidays. So I wanted to talk about when the Canadian tariffs were first announced, I believe in February. There's a vendor that I do business with. We sell at least $100,000 of their product a year. I would consider that a key vendor. They are since then absorbing a 25% tariff that they have avoided passing on to me. Those prices would be unsustainable in this marketplace. If they did pass those on to me, I'd have to cancel a significant amount of inventory and figure out how to replace it. So there's one company, actually, can I grab that piece right here? Thanks. This is a garment that is from a Canadian vendor of mine. We have it priced competitively at $170. The owner of this company had to quickly drive my last shipment to the shipper to avoid a narrow deadline. This piece would have gone from $170 to $285 retail. So I just wanted to share that. I tried to order, this is a key vendor of mine of handbags. The company is based in England. The product is made in China. I tried to place a $2,000 fall handbag order because we're going into the next season. My $2,000 order would have had over $1,500 of import fees and taxes. I had to cancel the order, and now I'm going to have to figure out how to replace the supplier. So these higher prices, this shakier consumer confidence, and chaotic planning, like this is changing day to day. This is all overlapping as one big Venn diagram for economic disaster. As small businesses, we are even more vulnerable. We have a disproportionate disadvantage when it comes to these tariffs, and really like the big economic picture. A lot of us are competing against very big companies. We are less able to weather these storms than large companies. And what we do is we don't just serve ourselves with our business, we serve the communities that we do business in. And if any of us had to close, or if we were affected, that really affects the community around us. It could lead to job loss. We are absorbing, for companies that are passing on their tariffs to us, we are absorbing those tariffs as a retailer so that I don't have to increase prices to my customers. As competitive as this environment is right now, being a disadvantaged small business, we're really doing everything we can to hold on, but eventually these prices will reach the consumer. And we are here today to let you know, to let policymakers know, to let consumers know that this will ultimately affect them in both ways, big and small. So I wanted to introduce Jessica, who's behind me. And thank you for joining us. And Jessica is the owner of Jessica Blair Beauty. We were talking a little earlier, you started your business during the pandemic.
Yes.
And that is a sign of strength, so I'd like to hear more about your story.
Hi everyone, my name is Jessica Kowali. I'm the owner of Jessica Blair Beauty Supply, and she's correct. I started my business during the height of the pandemic. I started both online and through local pop-up shops. A little bit about what I do is all things beauty. That's what I tell people. So when it comes to hair care, skin care, nail care, hair extensions, that's everything I do. And so, after many years of hard work of doing pop up shops, selling online, selling through other stores, I finally opened my brick and mortar storefront in February of this year, which was right during the height of the tariff wars. For me, it's been a little different because the hair industry is a major part of my business, and we got hit pretty hard when it comes to tariffs. Majority of the hair extensions come from China, and so I've had customers who were used to maybe paying $100, $150 for hair bundles, and now that has almost doubled. A lot of my vendors have now charged, instead of charging a tariff fee, they've gotten creative and they just input new fees under shipping costs. So it won't necessarily say tariff fees, they'll just double the cost of the shipping. Another thing I've noticed is certain hair products. Although a lot of my hair products are American made and distributed right here in the United States, the cost of materials. So because the cost of materials has gone up, a lot of those products have also gone up. I've seen plenty of customers who are moms who come in and they purchase hair products for both themselves and their daughters. And they're now asking me like, hey, how many of these products in here can I use for both myself and my daughter? Because I can no longer afford kids' hair products and adult hair products. I now have to buy shampoo, conditioner, products that we both can use because I just don't have the extra money to spend on both of us. So for me, when I started Jessica Blair Beauty, it was really to be a safe space. It was also to provide opportunities to local beauty brands, cosmetic brands who wanted to get their products out there. So I kind of treat my store as an incubator space where I allow people to showcase their beauty products. For me, I want to keep that community. I want to keep that sense of where my customers feel comfortable, where they feel like they can be vulnerable and share like their hair care needs with me and also be able to afford the products. So far, I've pretty much been absorbing most of the costs. I have not passed off the cost of those extra shipping fees. And for me, it's kind of hard because I'm still technically a new business. Like I mentioned, I opened in 2020 and then the storefront just opened in February. So I'm still getting people through the doors, but I'm also absorbing the costs while still trying to get new clientele and getting new customers. So my biggest thing, I guess, would be to my customers is to let them know that I want their support and I want to still be able to help them. But the way things are going now, I probably won't be able to offset the costs much longer because it's just continuously increasing. I just got another email about 2 days ago from another vendor who told us there'll be another increase August 1st. So I've already absorbed two of those increases, and now we're getting another message about another increase in those shipping costs, which we know are the tariff fees. So yeah, I would like to introduce Craig Batori. He'll talk about how the tariffs have also impacted him.
Thanks, Jessica. Good morning. Thanks for letting us have your space, Rachel. I'm Craig Batori, owner-founder of Craig's Coffee in Midtown Detroit. I started my business, similar to Jessica, actually a little before COVID, January 2020. And then in March of 2020, everything, the lockdown came. So like many entrepreneurs here as well, I sort of used COVID as a time to develop my own business and my own brand. And my business now is a coffee roastery. I have a coffee shop. We're also a sort of like a coffee roasting commissary, so we allow other roasters and small businesses to come in and utilize our space to grow their own roasting business. And we also roast for several other restaurants and cafes, provide private labels. So we do a lot of different things other than roasting my coffee and servicing our community. We allow other businesses to come in and roast their coffee as well. The last few years, I've been growing my business very steadily. In 2023 is when I opened my brick and mortar down on Peterborough Street. and I have 5 employees, 6 including myself since then. So it's been a really rapid growth and an organic growth, but that's sort of starting to come to a dead stop now because of a lot of the tariffs that we're seeing. Just to begin, the blanket tariffs are 10% on green coffee. Some countries now, like in Brazil, for example, that tariff cost is going up 50%. And I'm seeing that cost directly now as a line item from our importers. So our producers, the folks who grow the coffee, they impose that tariff onto the importer. The importer then imposes that cost onto me. And then, like other businesses have mentioned, Jessica mentioned, I was absorbing that cost at first, but now I'm actually increasing prices and slowly moving those costs to my customers. And I've spent the last 6 months sort of writing blog posts, posting on social media, preparing my customer base for these increases. But right now, it's just me staying afloat. These cost increases aren't increasing my bottom line. It's just for me to maintain my business. And the extra money we wanted to grow the business, to pay my staff more, is now absorbing part of these tariff costs, but then also implementing these costs to the consumer. And I have a very strong customer base, and so I'm confident my customers will stay and continue to buy my coffee and support me. But to what extent? Because they're starting to see cost increases across the board for groceries, for retail items, for school items. And again, this isn't just me making a profit, it's just staying afloat. So to give some really hard examples, in Brazil, there was a blanket tariff of 10%. Due to some drought and bad weather patterns, the cost of Brazilian coffee went up by 50 to 70%. So what we were paying $2.50, that climbed almost all the way up to $4. That has since gone down because Brazil is stabilized, but now there's a 50% imposed tariff on Brazilian coffee. And again, that 50% comes directly as a line item on invoices to me. And on top of that, Brazil makes up half of my inventory. And I probably can speak for a lot of other coffee roasting companies that because Brazil is such one of the largest producers of coffee, a lot of coffee roasters source a lot of Brazilian coffee. Me personally, I source about 50% or more of Brazilian coffee. So that cost of the tariff is directly impacting me already. So what that sort of means is a $3 cup of coffee, just for the cost increase of the raw coffee, might go from $3 to $4. And that doesn't even account for the cost of our dry goods like cups and bags. And we do source a lot of products, like our boxes, our cups are made domestically, but a lot of the brands that we use source their materials from China or from Taiwan or from Europe. So we've already seen cost increases from these suppliers that are providing our cups, our straws, our bags, our machinery. So it's not just the green coffee. And on top of that, the idea of the tariffs was to bring manufacturing to the United States, was one thing, right? But coffee can't be grown commercially in the United States. So I've been making transitions to start buying more domestic products for my brand, but the one thing that we spend the most money on, at least 60% of our costs are to raw coffee, and we can't grow raw coffee in the United States. So it's creating a really weird conundrum, especially for countries like Brazil, where I source so much coffee, is now I'm scrambling to pivot and figure out, do we continue to source coffee from Brazil, pass that cost on as little as we can to the consumer, or do we pivot and source from other countries? But there's a lot of uncertainty about that. We were sourcing coffee from Indonesia. That tariff went from 10% to 30%, now it's at 19%. So it's just really unsustainable because we don't know what's going to happen on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis. So if there was a blanket tariff of 10%, I don't like it. We could absorb that cost and adjust my business accordingly. But because things are so all over the place, it just leaves business owners like myself and like everyone here scrambling and pivoting and just trying to keep our business afloat and keep our staff afloat and maintain this relationship with our community. To wrap things up, like Jessica and Rachel had said, a lot of these bigger brands, these bigger coffee companies can absorb some of these costs. They're buying in such large volume is that they, in a good way, are getting price discounts, and they can weather the storm. At least, that's what it's forecasted to be. But I guess my goal is to bring awareness to this. Our policymakers are definitely working for us, but I would call action to like a lot of our hyper-local policymakers, like our council folks, our banks, the Small Business Association. Other organizations around here that can help us secure loans or secure grants with low interest rates to help us financially so we can sort of weather this storm. In the housing crisis 2008, we saw after that, especially in Detroit, there were a lot of like first-time home buyer programs that came. Interest rates went down to help the local economy and help everybody domestically. And so I would, call on our community to ask for the same thing, is to ask our industry leaders, to ask our banks, our local politicians to see what can be done to help us like weather this storm, because the tariffs aren't going away. So what's going to happen next? Cost is going to go directly to the consumer, and the consumers might stop shopping. So it's a fear for my business and other businesses in the city. Big picture, I would say the cost of everything is going up, and that cost is directly coming to the consumer. For my business already, that cost is being passed to the consumer with increases from $1 to $3 to $5 for a bag of beans, and increases from $1 to $2 on a cup of coffee. Thanks for having me, and I'd like to introduce now Amy Peterson, who owns Rebel Nell.
Thank you. Thanks for having us, Rachel. Thank you all for having me today. I'm Amy Peterson. I'm the founder of Rebel Nell. We are a social enterprise based in Detroit. We provide employment for women who are transitioning out of shelters, and we make unique, one-of-a-kind gifts and accessories out of repurposed materials such as fallen graffiti, or preserving iconic locations such as the Joe Louis Arena, Comerica Park, Michigan Central Station. But also what we really make is opportunity. Our goal is to give women in our community the tools, skills, and confidence to build an independent life. The tariffs are certainly impacting our business in a very negative way. While we do manufacture and assemble here in Detroit, and we're very proud of that fact, our materials, as you mentioned, all come from all over the place. We source our silver from, actually, we're really proud of our pipeline. We work with mission-aligned businesses in different countries to help us source our silver so that we're supporting women all over the globe. However, our tariffs have been drastically increased. Some of our prices have gone from basic 5 to 8% up to 35%. This has already started to impact our business and those that we employ. We had 15 employees. We are now, unfortunately, at 13 because we had to make cuts as a result of our cash flow. We took advantage of the 90-day window where we could purchase everything. However, we used up every little bit of cash that we had. That's not a sustainable business practice. You should be lean and just purchasing when you need to. But we used it all in order to take advantage of the 90-day window. So this chaos has caused a lot of ebb and flow in our business. And as a result, the consumer spending has not really matched what we were hoping for. So it's put us in a little bit of a challenging situation, one that we will certainly navigate, as we've navigated so many things for 13 years. However, this is one that could have certainly been avoided. For example, we received a tariff invoice for silver just the other day, and what would typically be around $800. It was now $2,500. That kind of jump forces us to make difficult choices about where we spend and how we price things. We know that our consumer can only bear so much, so it's finding that balance. Like many other small businesses, we operate on a razor-thin margin, and in particular, not only because we know what our customers will pay for our product, but also we support a really strong mission. But one of the biggest challenges is planning, whether it's hiring for the holidays, expanding product lines, or budgeting for new equipment. We need predictable input costs. We just haven't had the time or energy. With a small business, we've had to spend so much time and energy navigating what all these different tariff changes mean to us, and it hasn't put our energy in places where we need to think about growth and how to sustain our business. The constant back and forth make it nearly impossible to plan ahead. This takes our focus away from growth and furthering our mission. Every time costs go up, we're forced to make a hard choice. Do we raise prices? Do we cut back on hiring? This is affecting real people and real families right here in our community. We're proud to have created a supportive work environment that provides not just jobs, but wraparound support and long-term opportunity for the women that we employ. But when trade policy is unpredictable It undermines all of that work. I really am urging policymakers to think about business like mine, not just big manufacturers or corporations. Tariffs don't just hit supply chains, they hit workers, community programs, and job pathways that help people get back on their feet. Please think of us when you're making these decisions and how you're voting. It's with my pleasure, I'd like to introduce Charity Dean.
Good morning. So I'm Charity Dean. I'm the president and CEO of the Michigan Black Business Alliance. I'm also a small business owner. I own the coffee shop Rosa. We have 2 locations in Detroit. But I'm standing here really emotional and hoping to convey what I know our over 2,000 members across the state have been feeling this year. I mean, we've heard from our friends that talked about the specifics, and I don't even have to share. Craig did a great job talking about the impact on the coffee shops. That is absolutely the situation we're in Rosa, and have already started increasing our prices. But what is most, I think, telling is that at this time in this city, in this state, small businesses continue to be the recipients of collateral damage for bad policy, for political gains. And so my message here is not to tell the story that you've already heard about the cost of tariffs and how it impacts small businesses who hire from communities, who employ 50% of the state of Michigan. But my message is for every single leader. And I'm not just talking about those that are elected, and I appreciate my colleague Craig for saying that. We all have a role to play with this crisis. There is something for everyone to do. And so even at the city level, at the state level, we are screaming that we need change. Small businesses struggle so much. Every year there is something else. I spend a lot of time in city halls across the state and at the state level talking about some new policy that is between, really a fight or an issue between 2 parties, and the constituency that generally gets the bulk of the collateral damage are small businesses who don't have the time and money to lobby government, who don't have the time and money to do the white paper, to do the research. And so what I'm asking is for every elected official to hear the voice of the small businesses that employ the communities that you serve. I am asking for corporate leaders to raise their voice, to use their power of convening to do something to stop this crisis. Because although it is July and not everyone has passed the cost down, the cost will go to the consumer. We are going into a recession. We will see the impacts of this, and it's going to start with the least of these first, unfortunately. It is generally those that have the least access that are the most impacted. The folks it is harder to access capital are the most impacted by these political games. And so my ask, the reason why I am here today, is to let everyone know that we are screaming to the rooftops. Something needs to be done, and we are tired of being collateral damage to political uncertainty. And so with that, I'll introduce Craig. He's with Tariffs Cost Us.
Thank you.
Thank you all for being here today. I really appreciate you all sharing your experiences and the impacts from these tariffs. I just wanted to say thanks for coming and also open it up for questions. So if you have a specific question for an individual, please feel free to ask it, or if it's a general question, that's great too. So leave it up to y'all.
I know you guys kind of started talking about what I'm going to ask. Someone said 10%, 30%, 19%. Does this instability, can someone go deeper into how that affects future planning?
If you could come up to the podium.
Sure, I'm more than happy to, because it's taken so much out of our team to constantly navigate where we are, when to buy, and we don't have a runway. But for example, they first launched with this, some of our metals do come from China, but most come from Thailand, but it was kind of all under one blanket tariff of it all spiked to 35 and north. And figuring out just which countries were which, what was being impacted, that originally was not very clear. And then for us, they gave the 90-day window, that grace period. So because the uncertainty, because we had no clue of what was happening and we're afraid of what's to come, and again, I'm stressing this we don't have, most small businesses we operate maybe, if we're lucky, 3 months of runway. We don't have a ton of capital that we're just sitting on waiting to deploy. So we used everything we had to buy the materials because of the uncertainty that was in our future and because of the up and down in the media of today was one rate, the other was, the next day was a higher rate. So we had a 90-day window. So it was during that time we said, okay, well, we're going to take advantage. I'm going to do the best for my business, and my best decision right now is to try and buy as much material as I can because we had this grace period. Well, the challenge with that also, so we used not only all of our cash, but the consumer spending dropped. So we were hoping to have at least the same June that we had last year. That was where I was. Well, the sales in June dropped significantly. So we're caught in a little bit of a tug and pull right now because we just have used all of our cash reserves. But on top of that, now our suppliers to be able to turn things around within 90 days is almost impossible. So even though we tried our best, and like the day one of those 90 days, we said, we're gonna go all in, we're gonna get our materials now. They're struggling to make it by the end of that 90-day window, so we're getting caught with the tariffs almost regardless of when we put in the order. So it's navigating, and it depends on when it ships one place, and it varies from country to country. And when you have a team of 12 people and really only 2 of them are making the business decisions, and you're trying to just float and make everybody, navigate what's happening on a day-to-day basis from just dealing with family issues and everyone else's fears and trying to calm them and just running a business and putting a smile on your face and serving customers. This is just one unnecessary thing that I feel that had there been a better plan, we could have adjusted and put forth a better strategic plan from our perspective.
Anyone else want to answer that?
I'll agree. I think what also a lot of consumers don't understand is that different industries operate on different timelines. Coffee, like Craig's Coffee, has to be like super fresh. That's okay. Go to your cafe. Beauty supply products, maybe a slightly longer timeline. Apparel industry, I'm buying for spring right now, even though we're headed out of summer. So I'm going to trade shows and dealing with vendors they have price tags on their samples, but like who knows what that price is going to be when that merchandise actually ships in spring. So these industries are staggered differently. They're going to hit consumers differently. You'll see it first with like highly consumable, perishable things like groceries, then consumer goods, then like longer term items. Even my domestic suppliers, as been pointed out by some of my colleagues, even they're facing increased costs because of their components coming from other places. We went into small business to serve our communities. We didn't go into small business to open spreadsheets on different relationships with different countries and what it is this hour, this day, this week, this month. So here we are just trying to serve our community, our neighbors, and we're having to like go into international relations as well. So it really takes a lot from running your business.
Yeah, I'll be brief too. I just wanted to speak just hard numbers with you and give an example of a real life example. So Brazilian coffee, I'm forecasted for next year to purchase around $33,000 to $35,000 dollars worth. So that's about 5,000 pounds. So if I'm budgeting for $33,000 of coffee, and that, let me back up here. If the price of Brazilian coffee is $3 and I'm budgeting for 10,000 pounds of coffee, I know we're going to pay about $30,000 for that coffee, right? The 10% adds on another $3,000. So that's something that we can either weather or we can pass to the consumer. Another 50% is $15,000. So now we're looking at paying $45,000 on the Brazilian coffee that we wanted versus $30,000. And so we can forecast and budget for that $10,000 increase at 10%, but then if it shifts to 50%, it's impossible to try and budget that additional 50% cost. So then it's forcing us to make these hard business decisions about, do we keep sourcing from Brazil? And the uncertainty that you'd ask too is the numbers are bouncing around all over the place. Like in Indonesia, it was 10%, went to 30%, now it's 19%. that was all in the course of 3 months. So every week we're having to adjust. I'm having to adjust our budget, our forecast, our bottom line. And instead of focusing on what Rachel had said too, instead of focusing on the business, we're focusing on economics and economic policy. So just wanted to give some like hard numbers to show kind of like what we're all looking at. So.
Chair, I believe you had mentioned asking policymakers, lawmakers, et cetera, for help. I'm wondering, what do you think that policymakers not named Donald Trump can do for small businesses at this point?
What was the last part?
I'm wondering what you think policymakers not named Donald Trump can do for small business at this point.
First and foremost, I think policymakers need to center small business when they're thinking about economic development. That's the first thing. That's not happening, right? So what generally happens is when a budget is done or laws are being made, we think about, like if I take the state, we think about growth. We always think about big manufacturing plants that are going to do 40 jobs, and we'll put X amount of dollars into this pot, and we're not actually putting ourselves, and we talk about design thinking, we're in the middle of a summer internship program at MBBA, and we're actually talking about tariffs with the young people, but we're talking about like, how do you think about the user first? So if I am a small business in Michigan, what does that look like, and what are the budget implications that we can do right now? So we had Senator Kavanaugh come Monday, and she actually introduced legislation. I don't know, Lansing they're having a lot of fun up there, but she introduced some tariff, what did she call it? Tariff relief legislation. But what I'll say is, I don't know a small business that's not impacted by tariffs, so I don't know the number that you put in the budget for that. But that's a start, right? The other thing is leveraging a voice. Like, there is something very powerful about a group of elected officials in Michigan coming together and not having us do this press conference because we've got businesses to run, but they do the press conference and say, hey, this is how this is impacting my state. Hey, I actually am going to lose money from education, but I've got to take money that really could be going to small business, and I got to put it over here to education. Like, there are things that elected officials could do that cost $0 that help raise the voice and center the needs of small businesses. And the least of which is asking us, right? Calling us, hey, how is this impacting you? What do you think I should be doing? And so it's a lot of free stuff that people can do. That's what
Policymakers can reach out to you. I know you mentioned Senator Kavanaugh.
So how do I answer this? It's an election year in Detroit. And at the Black Business Alliance, we make it our business to go to elected officials and make sure they're thinking about small business from city council all the way to the governor's office. I think there is an enormous amount more that could be done for small business at every level of government. There is not one person that gets it right yet. So that's what I'll say. Yeah.
Any other questions? I was just curious where your stores are located.
Oh yeah, so Rosa, the original, the OG Rosa, it's called Grandma's House. It's located in Rosedale Park, and the second location is at the Water Square on the riverfront.
Jessica, could
Yep.
mention where you are?
So Jessica Blair Beauty is also located in Rosedale Park on Grand River in between Steel Freeway and Outer Drive.
Okay. Okay, so like these are neighborhood businesses, and that's where you're drawing your employees from, I assume. I don't know, I guess just talk about drilling right down to the neighborhood. If you have to make horrible decisions.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say for Jessica and I, so Grand River, sorry. It's okay. So there is, the city of Detroit has a lot to do in terms of investing in their commercial corridors, I'll say. But there has been some small attention to the stretch of Grand River where Jessica is. I'm a little bit further west. But again, right, I run the Michigan Black Business Alliance. I'm always thinking about where our members are, right? And so having a member that's a beauty supply on Grand River, so this is a black-owned beauty supply, that matters, right? We try to, we're very, in our community, it's like, okay, where's the black-owned this, right? We're always trying to find it. So to have a black-owned beauty supply is huge. It's a big deal. But we also recognize that the tariffs that she's having and that are impacting her they are already impacting her customers. And so what that does is that puts a time limit on how long Jessica's there on Grand River, because it's one thing to do e-commerce, it's a whole nother thing to have to manage brick and mortar in the city of Detroit. And so the direct effect of the tariffs going to the consumers impacts how long she's going to be on Grand River, which impacts how long Grand River will actually have a thriving commercial corridor, which impacts how many people decide they want to live in Grandmont, Rosedale. These things are all connected. You can't have a strategy about growing the state if you don't have a strategy about supporting and growing brick and mortar small businesses. They have to coexist. They can't. But I'll let you.
So I spoke a little earlier about how I've seen changes in customer habits, but then also another thing that I was doing, I mentioned with my store, is kind of treating it as an incubator space. So I noticed in the beauty supply industry, especially for like local beauty brands and cosmetics, they really didn't have a space to get their name out there and get their products out there. So I started utilizing my store as a way where I would do pop-up shops. Right now I have 5 local Metro Detroit brands who are carried in my store. And kind of like Charity mentioned, this is actually bigger than me. So if I'm no longer able to offset the cost and absorb the cost of these tariffs, if I were to go out of business, now that's 5 other businesses who they're growing their brands through my store. And they're getting their name out there. They potentially want to be carried in a Walmart or Myers, and their sales have increased from my store. So it's kind of like a trickling effect of, it's not just me, but now we're talking about 5, 6, maybe 10 more businesses that'll be impacted by this.
Small businesses like the Peacock Room, like Craig's Coffee, like Jessica Blair Beauty, these with Rosa, these are all, we are the community, and people need to ask themselves how many more vacant storefronts they want to see in their neighborhoods, which directly affects property values, as Charity was just mentioning. So we are already competing with big business, but big business can't brew you a cup of coffee in the morning. It can't put in your hair extensions. Big business can't help you select a dress to wear to a wedding or a funeral, which is what we help people with at the Peacock Room. We are community businesses that serve our neighbors. We are irreplaceable. Technology hasn't solved all consumer needs. So these brick and mortar spaces that people value, they value because they're needed in the community. And we've seen so many close over recent years because of the pandemic or because of just, the widening gap between big businesses and small businesses. So consumers ultimately have to ask themselves, how appreciated and needed are we in the communities? Because if we don't survive, they're going to have their neighbors lose jobs. There's going to be less tax revenue captured to build schools and roads and public safety. No one wants to walk down a street that's full of vacant storefronts. And so many cities and main streets across America are already seeing that. This is going to be a further exacerbation of that problem.
So we're in the Fisher building. Is every storefront taken right now?
All you need to do is look at how many for lease spaces there are in this building and other commercial buildings. We're on, I think, the precipice right before a commercial real estate collapse. I mean, you've seen offices not renew their office leases because companies are figuring out they don't need as much commercial space. Some folks are still working from home. And on one hand, it's great. People are learning to do more with less, but less also means less in the community. It means less property values. It means less jobs. It means less revenue. So I think that, all you need to do is look at really any major city, any major commercial corridor. It doesn't look the same way as it did 5 years ago. So these businesses and these commercial properties are already fragile. This could be a nail in a coffin for a lot of businesses.
All right.
one thing I wanted to just add too,
Yeah,
just real
get
quick.
in there.
I've been taking just a very,
Happy?
just a very data-driven approach to the whole economic situation the last 3 to 6 months. Like Charity and Jessica had mentioned, like, you know, these corridors are starting, there's a lot can be done, like a lot that can emerge as small businesses. I'm in a corridor myself, just down the road on Cass. The average medium income in Detroit is just over $50,000, right? And we these folks, our communities, are choosing to spend their money with our businesses, these tariffs are directly impacting our bottom lines. And so if we have to raise costs, our consumers, they're still actively choosing to support our business, but then at what cost to them? And like Rachel had mentioned as well, you know, there's so many vacancies around that we want to put small business in. You know, Detroit, more than 50% of Detroit is small business. And it's just not sustainable for a small business to exist here. I mean, there's so many food deserts, so many vacancies, so many blighted properties already, and the economic outlook is just going to get worse because people are going to have less to spend. I just wanted to add, again, just some actual like hard numbers that my team, my partner and I have been exploring, where it's real and it's going to start trickling down, as Charity already said. So.